Hi, everybody. How are you? Good? Awesome. Okay, well, that was an amazing intro, and I had written an intro, so we're just going to bounce straight off that. My name's McGregor. I'm the Program Manager at Music New South Wales. As you would have just heard, before I go any further, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Biripi people, pay my respects to elders past and present, and extend that respect to any First Nations people in the room. Where the big river meets the sea, there are a lot of stories here, and it's important to acknowledge that we're discussing a form of storytelling today, and that great storytelling happened here for 60,000 years before us. I'm thrilled to be chatting to Anna today. How are you?
I'm good.
You good?
Very impressed by the river and the sea.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being in the same place.
An incredible place. Anna and I arrived here together on a very tiny plane. And neither of us had spent much time here, so we were pretty wowed by the sunset and the amazing waterways.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
We also got a tour from our amazing Uber driver.
We sure did.
Anna, I've read that your passion and curiosity for music production and the magic of the studio was captured for you as a teenager. Do you want to set the scene for us?
Yes. Suburban Perth in the 90s. I'm sure you can imagine. We're an immigrant family. We moved over from England in 1990 from the north of England to suburban Perth, as many, many people have. And my dad is a huge music lover. He has an incredible record collection, which I actually recently told him I would really like in his will, which was awkward, but I really do. We just always had music on in the house, and I think when we moved to Australia, well, for starters, my parents convinced me to move to Australia by telling me that I would get to meet Kylie Minogue. And then when I moved here, I was told she actually lived in London with Michael Hutchence. So I was very disappointed by that. But music for me, and I think my dad as well, was a connection to where we came from. So we just always had music on in the house, and I was always very fascinated by the credits on the back of records. So I would always look at the produced by, recorded by, and for some reason gravitated towards that. I never gravitated towards the sung by or performed by. That's not my place. And then I think music documentaries was my access to like the insight of the music industry, and I always connected to the person behind the console. Funny, because I was a young girl and they were all men. So it's weird that that's what I connected to, but I wanted to be the person pressing the buttons.
Breaking the cycle, really?
Well, yeah, I guess. I never thought I couldn't. Yeah.
That's amazing. Was there, talking about your dad's collection, was there a specific record that really threw you over the edge into the studio?
Okay. So, well, I think in my DNA is like, you know, the Beatles and that kind of music from my dad. But then I think I would say the record that I was really into pop music when I was like a young teenager, so I was really into like Hanson and the Spice Girls and stuff like that. As long as they played their own instruments, I was like pretty into it. But then when I was like 14, 15, when I actually started having proper feelings, my brother played a lot of Nirvana. So coming down the hallway in, you know, our house, that's probably what turned me on to wanting to be in music as you know, in the industry.
I feel really akin to that. I got a CD player as I think like a 14-year-old, and I used to listen to Nevermind to sleep.
Yeah, same.
Which I don't know what my parents thought about that.
Well, is that or Alanis Morissette? So,
Jagged Little Pill.
Yeah.
Love it. So obviously you heard in the intro how many hats that Anna has worn, studio engineer, assistant producer, mixer, even writer.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of taking away from all of that, can you tell us the role of a producer and in the way of a sonic interpreter?
Yes, I think. So a producer, in my humble opinion, is someone who has a creative input on a record. So an engineer is someone who can technically record something and make it sound good, or how they can make it sound how they want it to sound. And a producer is someone who actually has creative input on what it's going to sound like in the end. And they have a vision, and hopefully that vision matches up with the artist's vision, and then at the end you have a finished product. A big part of the producer's role as well that isn't talked about that much is delivering on time and within budget. And I think, you know, one of the benefits of hiring an external producer as opposed to doing it yourself is that we have the experience to deliver on time and within budget. Often if you try and do it yourself, things that you weren't expecting can blow out time-wise or money-wise. Having said that, those things are definitely learnable. It's just like experience, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, there's obviously film producers. I've never really thought about that in the fact that, you know, music producers also are the people that put the project together and manage it. And the costs as a part of that would be the studio, the session musicians, that kind of thing.
Yeah, everything that you have to pay for to get a record finished. Yeah. And
do you see producing as a form of storytelling?
Yeah, sort of. As a producer, I see my role as helping the artist realize their storytelling. So it isn't my place to come in to a record and be like, I have something I want to say in your record. I'm like, all right, what are you trying to say? And then I work out a way to say it.
We were talking about this before, and Anna was laughing, saying, you know, I'm not writing lyrics for somebody else's heartbreak. It wasn't my experience.
Yeah. I mean, I can go, oh, well, that time when I was heartbroken, this happened to me. Does that relate to this situation? And could I maybe put a lyric in? But I'm not going to be like, pretend to feel how you felt in that experience. Yeah.
And how closely do you work with the artist when you're producing? Is there, you know, not so much in the studio time, but is there pre-production or things that you're learning about the artist to sort of help them with that storytelling?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like you have to have some context because not everybody is the same. So usually before a session, I will meet them. If it's remote, you know, I'll meet them online. But I do like to meet people in the flesh. I have a pretty good sense of. I'm a pretty good judge of character. So I use that in how we're going to approach a record. If it's a band, I really like to go to the rehearsal room and see the dynamic between the people, because my job as well is to manage that dynamic and find the egos and work out how they all work together and work out where the problems are going to be, because I can see it in the rehearsal room. And yeah. So
a therapist.
Yes.
It doesn't sound like a small job at all.
No, it's not. And I think I'm a real people person. So I go deep with people. That's what you asked, I think. I do go really deep with people. In fact, I recently did a record with an artist called Missy Higgins, and it's a record about getting divorced, and it was really, really intense. And I'd just done a record before that with an amazing artist called Anna Smirk, and that record was about her dad dying and being hit by a car and dying, and like her processing her feelings about that. So I did those two albums back to back, and I remember going to a barbecue after a session at a friend's house, and I just finished up with Missy, and then I went there for dinner, and my husband was there with my kids, and I got there and was joining in the barbecue situation, and my friend is a psychologist, and he was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, I'm fine. And I really realized I actually had to talk out what I was going through, because it was like my dad had died and I was getting divorced at the same time. So it was very full on. So yeah, I do go pretty deep with it, but I have to, it's like a therapist, I have to kind of sometimes talk it out afterwards as well.
Yeah, a lot of emotional carrying.
Yes.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
And what, I mean, so for the Missy record, for example, and just in general, how do the projects come about? Do they come to you? Do you go to them? Like, how does that happen for Anna Laverty?
Yeah, when I was younger and I was like trying to get into the music biz, I would go to gigs all the time, and meet artists, and you know, and you would have to say, I'm a recording engineer. I'd love to record you. Let me know if you ever want to record, blah, blah, blah. And then I got jobs in studios working as an assistant engineer, and that's how a lot of people met me. And I think it's funny, like, you know, people sort of underestimating you and then seeing you in practice. Like, even I literally did a session last week with a young band, and they were like, oh, wow, it's like you actually really know what you're doing. Which is quite funny because I have been doing it for 25 years. But yeah, so I think I have to really explain to people that this is what I do and I'm available for hire. But then now almost all my jobs come through word of mouth. So the Missy record, I believe, came about, when a couple of years ago, many years ago now, I did a record with an American artist called Amanda Palmer, and she recorded it in Australia, and she had a couple of guests come in, and one of the guests was Missy Higgins, came in and guested on a song, and I recorded her. I produced it, I recorded her. And then I was at the Arias, my only Arias I've ever been to, about 3 or 4 years ago, and Missy was there. And so I went up to her and I was like, oh, hey, Missy, I recorded you for that Amanda Palmer thing. And she did not remember me, did not remember it happening at all. And she was like, oh, great to meet you, you know. And I was like, oh, my God, I feel like such an idiot. But I didn't really know anyone else on the red carpet. So I was like, well, I know her. So I went and said hi to her. And then she didn't remember me. So that was awkward. But then a year or two later, I got the phone call from John Watson, her manager, saying, oh, Missy really, you know, she's doing a new record. She's interested in maybe doing it with you. Do you want to get together? And so, yeah, I'm glad I did go and introduce myself again, even though it was super awkward. But
the hustle is real, though.
It's grim.
Yeah.
It's really grim.
Can we get a show of hands, actually? Artists in the room?
Oh, yeah, good. It would be good to know.
And keep them up if you're also a producer. Kinda. And just a producer.
Oh, cool. That's what I assumed.
The hats.
That's what I assumed.
Yes. We're gonna. I want to get a bit deeper on some of the other artists that you've worked with, especially in London.
Yep.
But I just wanted to ask one question: what is a mystery about producing that you think is prevalent? And in the same instance, can you break the mystery for us?
The mystery for me, honestly, is that people think it's such a mystery. Like
it's a dark art.
I really despise the idea that production is a dark art. It's gatekeeping at its worst. All I do is like come in and have opinions about your music and hit record, and we have a record. We're not doing any kind of magic other than making music, which we all know is actually a kind of magic. Yeah. And like I studied, like I went to uni for 3 years and learnt how to hit record, you know, and I in various ways. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, great. So let's get to some of those sort of deeper stories of working in London. When working in London with Paul Epworth, you tell this amazing story of working with Florence and the Machine.
Okay.
Florence and the Machine. Seriously. She came through the studio when she was about 19, and she was incredibly self-conscious about the volume of her voice.
She's loud.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I've heard those records. Come on.
Yeah.
But Paul found a way to calm her nerves and sort of created this environment and changed the moment really swiftly for her. Can you tell us that incredible story?
I don't actually know what story you're talking about, but I'm assuming it's got something to do with projections.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So, Florence was. I was going to say is really young. She was really young when we did that record. And so was I, actually, but you don't think about that at the time. But she... Sorry, is there a drummer in the room? Someone was tapping. She is very loud. But also she was quite a nervous person. And anyway, I remember coming in one morning and Paul was like, all right, I want to like offset this nerve thing that's going on. So... can you find like a projector? So the studio I worked at was kind of like this, maybe a bit bigger, big concrete room. And we had like the mic in the room, the desk was in the room, so everything was recorded on headphones. And to like check, we would have to play back. Like you couldn't really hear if it was good in place because there was a drum kit right in front of you. But anyway, we were just doing vocals at this time, and we set up the whole room with projectors, and we got a video of whales swimming in the ocean, and it was projected everywhere, and all the lights were out. And one of her songs was called Swimming. I don't think that's what it ended up being called on the record. That's actually a mystery of production. I've done all these records and I don't know what any of them are called because they get changed after I've made them, so that's kind of annoying. But so the whole studio was like being underwater, and she sang, and it really set the scene.
Did the microphone blow up?
No. You just put it a little bit further away. Not because it can't handle it, but because it'll distort, so it can't handle it. But like it won't blow up, but it will distort. I can explain the way microphones work to you later if you want, how they work. Also because it was such a huge room and we were trying to capture that vibe, so we put the mic a little bit further away so that it would capture like the whole room sound as opposed to just, the close.
I feel like I heard you talk about that before, the idea that, or maybe I was watching a documentary on ABC, but you're talking about how if a close mic to a vocalist, if you add the room mic, it sort of completely changes the sound.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
See? She knows what she's talking about. So yeah, I mean, I think the reason I pulled out that story is, I think, and something that you were talking about before, the idea of sort of therapy or learning the egos in the room. I think a sort of a quiet part of the story for a producer is you're also there to create this environment of comfort to get the best out of a performer.
Yeah, it's funny. Like when I'm recording like a singer, for example, I'll always set up like a little booth, and I'll put a glass of water and a stand for them to put their lyrics on, and people come in and they're like, "Wow!" And I'm like, "That was not an effort," but people don't do that apparently. Yeah.
I think music's funny like that, though. I mean, we've walked in here. I'm a touring musician. We walked in here and we've you don't get that on a live show. Somebody isn't bringing you a water.
Yeah. I wouldn't know. I don't do live. Yeah.
Oh, that's me.
I would if I was doing live.
Tell us about the magic take.
Yeah, that's a thing. So you can be working with an artist and, I work with bands a lot. So I set up the whole band in the studio, get the vibe good, and I'm already rolling, but and just wait for the take you can't explain it, you can't quantify it, but the take where everything just seems to work, even if it doesn't technically work, it works feel wise, and that's the one that's going on the record.
Can you give us an example of some time that's happened to you recently?
Oh my gosh. Well, it always happens. It happens on every song, otherwise you wouldn't have the song, True. So I've just finished a record with a band called Rolling Blackouts Coastal Fever, who are a Melbourne band, and they're amazing. They're a 5-piece with an acoustic guitar, which is really annoying, and like 3 singers. So to set that up live is very hard, because if you've got a singer singing in a room with the drum kit, the vocals in the drum kit, all the drum kits in the vocal mic, but then also acoustic guitar is hell, because it's an acoustic guitar, so you hear it in the room, so it's in all the mics. So that was really hard, but the thing about it was, and the reason why I got the Magic Takes, is because they're such a good band. They're so well rehearsed. They have been in a band for many years together, so they play off each other. They feel each other's dynamics and changes, and once again, I just capture it. But if you set up the room to be really vibey, they'll get to that moment quicker. On time, in budget.
What are we talking? Are we talking like, lamps?
Yeah,
incense?
Absolutely. Turn all the halogen lights off. Get lamps. Incense, no, because it'll get in the singer's lungs and throat. Also, it's kind of gross.
Okay, I'm fine.
Well, no, actually, it's not necessarily gross, but I had a really horrible incident with a candle in a studio once, and I've never, ever lit a match in a studio since.
What did you burn down?
I didn't burn anything down, but I was working with another person, and they insisted on having a candle sitting on top of the left speaker, which was on top of the Neve console. And I was like, I probably wouldn't light a candle there. And they're like, no, it'll be fine. So they were in the control room with the band doing that, and I was in the live room setting up, I don't know, let's say I was miking up a drum kit. They all decided to go out to lunch, and I walked into the control room and looked, and the candle had burnt down and had run all down the speaker, over the speaker, all the way down 3 channels of the console into the console. So it's like, consoles are like, you know how it's like lines of buttons and stuff. You lift it like that, and it's a whole it's like a whole thing of electronics inside it. And so 3 of those channels, which are worth about 12 grand each, were covered in wax. Yeah. So
note to self, no candles.
I cried. I immediately cried and turned the console off and ran and told Kai, the guy who owned the studio, and I think he cried. And then they all came back from lunch, and me and Kai were there with like all these channel strips all over with wax, and
everybody's crying.
Everyone was crying.
Oh dear. Well, you spoke about this before. Reading the liner notes. What does it feel like to have your name in the liner notes?
Feels great when it happens. It's great on a record, on a physical record. It's like, and the thing is, many producers and engineers work for very little money and for credits at the start of their career. So putting people's name on credits is really important. But in the digital world, we're fighting really hard to make sure that credits are included on all streaming platforms. Yeah.
We were talking about this earlier, and one of my gripes as an artist and somebody that works in the industry is I think that we have this sort of apex to the lead singer and no one else in the room. Any shout out to anybody who's a session musician who's who's playing in live areas and also playing on records. But yeah, that's it. That is something that we absolutely have to change. And as we're hearing today, the role of a producer is, just as the record wouldn't be made.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of people who could be the producer, but it sounds a certain way because of the person who was setting up the microphones and having the vision and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And why is it important to you to celebrate the collaborators for their work?
Because I know how hard people work to learn an instrument really well over many, many years. And so I think, it's not like we're doing it for fame and fortune anymore. So we should really be celebrating the people who live an artistic life, because it's a hard choice.
Absolutely. And as mentioned, the co-founder of MPEG, the Music Producer and Engineers Guild. Can you tell me a bit about the guild and the community that is a part of that?
Yeah. So during COVID, I'll tell you just a little bit about how it came about. During COVID, everybody was in lockdown, no one could work. And they had this list of like jobs of people who could get JobKeeper. I'm sure you all recall. And I always remember, like, even the Prime Minister couldn't pronounce what some of the jobs were because they were quite obscure. And record producer and sound engineer were not on the list, and so we just couldn't work and had no access to any money other than job seeker, which is unemployment, which is not what it was. And so I was very frustrated by that. And so I reached out to a few friends, actually Dean Ormston, the CEO of APRA AMCOS, and I was like, what can we do here? And he was like, well, we're actually having a round table. The music industry is having a round table with the government soon. I think you should be on there to represent producers. And so I was like, well, I can't really represent all producers, but I'll be there. But I actually rang quite a few of my friends who are producers all around the country to find out what their experience was and what they needed. And I collated that information. And then when we had the round table, I represented producers, and we got our name on the list for JobKeeper, really quickly, and everyone got back pay. So that was incredible. And I was like, wow, it's amazing what you do when you put your head together. Also, I'm from the north of England, so we're a union, part of the world. So I was like, all right, let's do this. And it's not a union, but it's a way of us all working together to, ask for fair work and credits and all that kind of stuff.
And for the producers in the room or working in that space, how do you become a member?
Oh, just go to the website and sign up. It's very easy. And we have 550 members across the country. We're a national organisation. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I had a bunch of questions for Anna around, being in the studio, but I don't want to step on her toes because she is actually holding workshops around this thing. But I'm going to dive into a couple, and if it steps too far over, just fine. Please.
Yeah.
So in the studio, what is a common mistake you see artists bring to the studio, whether it be disorganization of lyrics, unprepared vision, or potentially over-the-top preparedness where they don't have the ability to pivot?
I don't know. A common mistake that I see people make. I don't know, not writing good songs. No, just kidding. I think that is the most important thing, is writing good songs. Is obviously we can work with anything, but the song has to be good. But no, I think my job is to bring that organisation. So I'll come to rehearsal and I'll be like, these are the things that you need to have done before we go anywhere near a studio, because you're paying for it, and we don't have time in the studio to be changing guitar strings. These are things that we can do the week before. Yeah.
And we don't have time for you to go to dinner and to have half the console be covered in candle wax.
Yeah, no, that's not great. Yeah, that's a bit of a...
Yeah, cool. So a lot of that stuff is sort of you've organised in pre-production.
Yeah, so I do pre-production. So like I said before, I like to go to the rehearsal room and check out the vibe of the band and all the things. See if the guitarist and the lead singer actually like each other or not. That's a common dynamic of, them, butting heads.
Yeah, okay.
So I challenge that head on in the rehearsal room so that those things don't spill out into studio time. We talk about instruments, gear, how to get all that ready for recording. And it doesn't have to be good. It just has to be in its best condition. I can work with anything. I can literally work with anything, but it has to be in tune. And if the song's pretty good, that's good too.
That's a plus?
That's a plus.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you strike a balance between improvisation and exploring new territory on the day, or staying loyal to the initial vision that you've spoken about in pre-production? Does it excite you, or does it kind of intimidate you?
I don't really think about it, but I guess that is a skill as well. Is like, okay, you don't want to be like, we definitely can't try anything in the studio because we're on a time schedule, but you know, because you do want to be able to experiment and try different things, but you don't. I guess it's a bit of a dance between those two things. Like, you got to be flexible to try things. If someone wants to do something in the studio, even if I know it's not going to work or I think it's a bad idea, I will always try it, because I never want someone to think, oh, if we had done that, if we'd done it my way, it would have been better, because they're paying for it. So I want people to be able to try things and see for themselves whether it's good or not. My role, I see, is like getting them to see it for themselves so they don't just think that I'm telling them what to do.
Can you think of a project where there was just a dramatic shift from, you know, what you initially discussed? And I'm talking, you know, it was a electric, you know, record, and it's suddenly this acoustic folk album.
Not really. I think that would be nutted out in pre-production. But I have seen people like change their mind halfway through and sort of try to sabotage. Self-sabotage is a total thing that musicians do. So whether it be changing their mind halfway through and deciding now they don't want it to sound like all the references they sent me beforehand, and they now want it to sound like this completely other thing, and that's a thing, but then we have to have the conversation about why they're changing their mind, and all the way through to like people literally making themselves sick on recording day because they're so nervous. But like, not their body just becoming sick because they're stressed, like actually manifesting a cold on vocal recording day.
And they walk
It's
in and they stand on the mic,
finest.
and you're like, oh, no, we can't record that.
No,
that is slightly out of tune, and it doesn't sound great.
Yeah, no, just like, I worked with this one artist I always remember, and she manifested being sick, and she had no voice at all. Yeah.
Okay. Who was that person? So Anna lives in Castlemaine in Victoria, regionally, and when we spoke earlier, talked about you know, one of the biggest challenges of being a producer, being an artist, being somebody in this industry living regionally is a lack of access. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, I'm a national like producer, so I work with bands in Sydney, I work with bands in Adelaide, I work with bands in, I don't know, Alice, all over the country. And so like, even to come here, because this is a regional town and I've come from a regional town, so it took me like 9 hours to get here, you know what I mean? So, and that's like a whole day of travel to be a part of the industry, which I love, and I am so grateful to be here, but I'm going to have to do the same thing tomorrow to get home. So it's like, being regional is the time, and I think I jokingly but also quite seriously said the cost of fuel. Like, you know, it's a real thing.
And you also have a mixing sort of studio space in your house. Have you found, or, you know, potentially after COVID, but have you found that there is a lot of work that you can do online, or, you know, with people from far away?
During COVID, we did like suddenly discover audio movers and a way to, you know, transfer like high speed, high quality audio really quickly. But after COVID, I've never used that technology since. Actually, I think I did one session where Montaigne was in a studio in Sydney and I was in my bedroom. And I was producing, lol. But yeah, no, it's not like suddenly now I never leave my house and I, you know, only work remotely. You have to be in person, in my opinion, to like really connect with someone. Yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't want to be a musician and like hire someone and I never meet them. Yeah.
It would also be very hard, I think, to read people, right? And
100%.
As you said, that's a very important part of the role.
In the studio, people have a tantrum and walk out of the studio, and you can't have that remotely because you're working through things and people are really vulnerable, or they're bringing up things they have avoided for a really long time to get the best song or the best version of that song. You can't do that, online, because how would I chase after them? Yeah.
They set up their camera to make sure that you can see them walking away. Like, watch me walk.
Yeah.
And for any for producers out here today, how would you suggest, potentially emerging, how would you suggest they get started at home, honing their skills? Is there, one very small audio card that they could buy?
Yeah, you can start with, obviously you have to have some sort of recording device, so that's usually a laptop, and an interface and a mic and a pair of headphones, and you could spend your entire life learning how to produce with those things. Yeah.
It's true. There's also amazing YouTube tutorials that you can learn.
Yeah. There's also a lot of audio bros on YouTube.
It's really true.
In a good way and a bad way, if you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean.
Some people are so full of, and other people are very helpful and describe how to do things.
That could be you,
I can't think of anything worse.
Okay.
In fact, I was on a TV show for the ABC. I know they spoke about it before. That's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah.
And I would be recording or doing whatever in the session, and then they would turn around and say, "Oh, that was really funny. Can you do it again while we're rolling?" And I was like, "No, I can't." I'm the worst
Take
TV
two?
star in the world. Yeah.
Okay, maybe not a future step, but other future things. I've heard that you say that the name producer or the role of a producer has changed a lot in the last 5 to 10 years, and I think you've kind of talked or alluded to the fact that many artists are producers or engineers. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so obviously, if we were going to talk about the history of production, going back, the producer used to be the A&R person for the label. That's not the case anymore, especially in Australia. Usually the producer is also the engineer, so it's the same role, same person, so you're wearing the technical hat and the creative hat at the same time because of budgets. That's the only reason. When I worked in London, there was on bigger records, there would be there would be budget for a dedicated producer, and then engineers. And the producer's the one that's sitting there with the artist, getting all intimate, and the engineer's the one running around in the background plugging in mics and stuff. I do both of those things. So that's just, the way where we're at. But producers can also be people who make a beat for someone, or a producer can be trying to think of what else it might be. I guess they're probably the main things. Yeah, but it's definitely very broad, and it's weird. Sometimes an artist will say to me "Oh, I want to co-produce a record with you," and I say, "That's cool. I'm not anti that, but explain to me what your role will be in the production. Are you going to put a budget together?"
Yeah, and would their role be more likely arrangement, or what would be that role?
No, I think it's that they want to have an opinion on there's there's things that they wouldn't even know a producer has an opinion on. They wouldn't even know that was a thing. So why we're using a particular microphone on a particular instrument, they wouldn't even understand that, but they know what they don't want it to be. So sonically, they're like, that guitar tone is not right, and I'll be able to say okay, is it the guitar? Is it which pickup it's on? Is it the amp? Is it the microphone that's on the amp? I can usually work out what it is that's not working based on their description of why it's not working. Yeah.
I know that you just said a lot of things that can be learnt, but it does feel a bit dark arty to me.
Does it?
I don't know.
It's not though.
It sounds like a lot of variables.
There's a lot of variables.
Yeah. Amazing.
But they can be enlightened.
Yes. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Anna obviously works majority of the time in studio spaces, and for me as a producer, I work majority on laptops and things like that. The studio has changed many times over the last couple of years. There's a current trend at the moment that has artists like Fred again, who's an electronic producer from the UK, sort of turning up to remote Airbnbs with laptops, one interface, and very minimal monitoring. That's kind of a new trend of a studio. How do you foresee that sort of impacting the sound of records? If it's not in a studio and it's being made.
Yeah. There are some things that will sound better in a recording studio that has been acoustically designed and treated and, all that kind of stuff, like an orchestra or, any kind of acoustic instrument. But there is also a trend in music of things being created by a laptop. So you can be in the toilet making that. It will sound exactly the same. But if you're recording something in a room, it will be affected by the sound of the room. And so it matters. I think people maybe don't realize what they lose when they don't record in a great sounding room with really great mics through really, really expensive gear. But I also understand that access to that is not always possible. I have made records in remote communities using a generator. I have made records in abandoned courthouses in the Pilbara. I have made records in Rack Studios in London where they made the bends. I have made records everywhere. And they're all different. So the record's going to sound how it sounds because of the choices that you make when you're recording it or making it on a laptop.
That's actually part of my next question, the impact of AI, laptop instruments and instruments made out of plugins. There's a sort of threat of duplication and unoriginality, right? I actually work with an artist who I recently noticed that there's the same splice sample in her song as somebody else's.
Awkward.
And they're actually quite close as artists as well. So very awkward indeed. And it's amazing to have the access to sampling and things like that, but that is also a threat of, duplicating many times or that unoriginality. But on a positive outlook, I felt, especially in sort of, even in bigger pop records like Dijon and that new Justin Bieber record, Swag, there's this kind of humanness.
I haven't heard either, by the way.
Okay. There's this kind of humanness sort of creeping back in, and I think the way that I read it is it's, the reaction to that action of unoriginality. Is that something that you've noticed? Is that something that you think artists are sort of more excited about using real instruments? And, how do you feel about that as a producer moving forward?
Okay, so as I get older, I realize that everything is a reaction to what just happened. And everything that we've seen before, we'll see again. And it goes around, including in fashion, by the way. I never thought
100%.
the 90s fashion would come back, but here we are. My dad I used to play, when I was young, my favourite movie was My Girl 2. I don't know what that says about me. But I used to play that soundtrack over and over again, which was like music from like the 50s, I would say. And my dad used to walk in and go, "Oh, not this shit again." Like, it was shit at the time and it's still shit now, right? And which is quite hilarious because it's not. It's great. But, he was getting frustrated because people were making music now that sounded like when he was a kid, and he's like, can't we do something new and exciting? By the way, he listens to electronic jazz music now, which is quite funny because his like style constantly changes. A lot of people get stuck in one style of music for their whole life, whereas like, you know, hi-fi nerds and stuff, they're always looking for something new, which is actually what a producer could do. Some people get really into like one genre of production and that's what they do, and they stick with that for their whole life. I think I'm somewhere in the middle, where like I definitely always get the phone call when it's a band that want to make a rock and roll record. Like I can do that with my eyes closed, you know. But well, that would actually be great with my hands tied behind my back, I should say. But you always want to be trying to push the boundaries of what you're doing. And like I could go in the room and set up a drum kit, record it, and it would sound really great, but it sounds the same every time. So I'm like, what can I do on this session that will spice things up a little bit, you know? So you're not just making the same record every time. It's a big question what you just asked, because the whole AI thing is like we could spend a whole other day on it, but we won't. I think it's just a new tool that is available to us, and we always have we've always had new tools available to us. And you know, music producers are early adopters. We've been using AI for a long time, but not to generate music. And I think that's where it gets really, really boring, is like when we go, hey, computer, can you write a song for me that sounds like something else? It's like, just go and listen to that, you know. Like, I was actually thinking about this morning, because I always get asked about AI, and it's such a tricky question.
Sorry.
I never want to be the person that shuts down innovation or like new technology, because that's why we're here. Like, it's so exciting, but at the same time, I think when it's moving away from us connecting as people, what is the actual point of it? Like, we need music in our lives. We know that. It's, you know, it's something that gives everyone joy, right? The soundtrack of our lives is really important. But like, if we're going to give that away to the tech bros, I think our humanity is lost. You know, I think, what is the point of life if we don't have art to connect us? And yeah, that's what I think about it.
I completely agree. And yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Oh.
Whoa.
Magic.
Dark art.
I completely agree. And
Dark art.
It's a really beautiful point. I've got two more questions before we open up a Q&A, if anyone has any questions themselves. Albums or songs, and why?
Both. Because some people only write one good song.
And that should be the end of it.
And some people could only afford to make one song. I don't know. It's really funny. There's an artist called Lola Young who's incredible. She's got this song, which I think is one of the greatest songs ever written, called Messy. It's so good. But then I try to listen to the rest of her records, and I'm like, oh, nothing grabs me quite as much as that one song. But it is one of the greatest songs ever written, I reckon. Yeah.
I agree with that. And finally, what is your favourite song that you have played a role in making, and how did it feel holding your breath during that magic take?
I'm gonna think about which song, but you never know when you're making a record which one is going to be successful. It's really weird. Like, you can be recording a song and they finish recording and you go, oh my God, this is one of the greatest songs ever made. You know, it's going to do so well. And then literally 27 people listen to it on Spotify and you just want to die. But then a song that you think is like super mediocre and like boring, it's a hit. And you're like, how did this happen?
Personal choice, I guess, but those 27 people that listen to the greatest songs of all time.
Yeah, it was probably me.
Yeah.
On repeat. Yeah.
Thank you very much to Anna Laverty.
Okay.
Amazing to chat to you, and I really Yeah, I really do have 17,000 more questions for you, but
Yeah.
I'll close this now. It is not my time. We're going to open it up to the floor. I think we've got just 2 questions. Okay.
I'm doing a
but,
workshop later too.
Yeah, Anna is
so-
doing a workshop later, and
which is vaguely planned. So I can talk about whatever you want to talk about.
yes.
Talk about it in pre-production. And my language is usually, I think you can do better.
Nice. That's very diplomatic.
I'm ever the diplomat.
Yeah. I mean, you're not going to say it's a
Because I'm
shit
not
song.
there to be like, I'm not like, maybe it's not a shit song. In my opinion, I'm like, nah, I think you can do better.
Nice.
Same with lyrics. If people turn up and they're like, I'm like, oh, that line every time, oh, I want to die. I'm like, just this line here, I think you can do better.
Love it. That is diplomatic. And you, sir?
Yep. Yeah, multi-track recording, which is kind of like, you know, you record the drums to a click track and then you put the bass on it and then you put the guitar on it and then, you know, that kind of thing, and then vocals. I have done that lots of times, actually. I have done that. I personally never feel like it like they mean it. I don't get that from multi-track recording, but so much. But sometimes people insist on it, so sure, I can do that. I can do anything. I trained as a sound engineer, so I can actually record anything. But in my production, what would you call it? Like, my advice would be to practice, get really, really tight, and then hit record.
On the multi-track?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Whatever you're using to record, but I will just clarify. I always overdub like vocals and the guitar, lead guitar or whatever. It's just the drums, bass, and rhythm guitar that I want together and tight. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you so much to APRA for having us, and thank you to Anna.